Chapter 1. First Sight. My mother drove me to the airport with the windows rolled down. It was 75 degrees in Phoenix, the sky a perfect cloudless blue. I was wearing my favorite shirt, sleeveless white eyelet lace. I was wearing it as a farewell gesture. My carry-on item was a parka. In the Olympic Peninsula of northwest Washington state, a small town named Forks exists under a near constant cover of clouds. It rains on this inconsequential town more than any other place in the United States of America. It was from this town and its gloomy, omnipresent shade that my mother escaped with me when I was only a few months old. It was in this town that I'd been compelled to spend a month every summer until I was 14. That was the year I finally put my foot down. These past 3 summers, my dad Charlie vacationed with me in California for 2 weeks instead. It was to Forks that I now exiled myself, an action that I took with great horror. I detested Forks. I loved Phoenix. I loved the sun and the blistering heat. I loved the vigorous, sprawling city. "Bella," my mom said to me, the last of 1,000 times, before I got on the plane, "you don't have to do this." My mom looks like me, except with short hair and laugh lines. I felt a spasm of panic as I stared at her wide, childlike eyes. How could I leave my loving, erratic hair-brained mother to fend for herself? Of course she had Phil now, so the bills would probably get paid. There'd be food in the refrigerator, gas in her car, and someone to call when she got lost. But still, "I want to go," I lied. I'd always been a bad liar, but I'd been saying this lie so frequently lately that it sounded almost convincing now. "Tell Charlie I said hi." "I will. I'll see you soon," she insisted. "You can come home whenever you want. I'll come right back as soon as you need me." But I could see the sacrifice in her eyes behind the promise. "Don't worry about me," I urged. "It'll be great. I love you, Mom." She hugged me tightly for a minute, and then I got on the plane and she was gone. It's a 4-hour flight from Phoenix to Seattle, another hour in a small plane up to Port Angeles, and then a drive hour back down to Forks. Flying doesn't bother me. The hour in the car with Charlie, though, I was a little worried about. Charlie had really been fairly nice about the whole thing. He seemed genuinely pleased that I was coming to live with him for the first time with any degree of permanence. He already gotten me registered for high school and was going to help me get a car. But it was sure to be awkward with Charlie. Neither of us was what anyone would call verbose, and I didn't know what there was to say regardless. I knew he was a little more than a little confused by my decision. Like my mother before me, I hadn't made a secret of my distaste for Forks. When I landed in Port Angeles, it was raining. I didn't see it as an omen, just unavoidable. I'd already said my goodbyes to the sun. Charlie was waiting for me at the cruiser, this I was expecting too. Charlie's police chief squandered to the good people of Forks. My primary motivation behind buying a car, despite the scarcity of my funds, was that I refused to be driven around town in a car with red and blue lights on top. Nothing slows down traffic like a cop. Charlie gave me an awkward, one-armed hug when I stumbled my way off the plane. "It's good to see you," Belle smiling as he automatically caught and steadied me. "I haven't changed much. How's Renee?" "Mom's fine. It's good to see you too, Dad." Wasn't allowed to call him Charlie to his face. I only had a few bags. Most of my Arizona clothes were too permeable for Washington. My mom and I had pooled our research to supplement my winter wardrobe, but it was still scanty. It all fit easily into the trunk of the cruiser. "I found a good car for you, really cheap," he announced when we were strapped in. "What kind of car?" I was suspicious of the way he said "good car for you" as opposed to just "good car." "Well, it's a truck actually, shall we? Where did you find it?" "Do you remember Billy Black down at La Push?" La Push is the tiny Indian reservation on the coast. "No. He used to go fishing with us during the summer," Charlie prompted. That would explain why I didn't remember him. I do a good job of blocking painful, unnecessary things from my memory. "He's in a wheelchair now," Charlie continued when I didn't respond. So he can't drive anymore, and he offered to sell me his truck cheap. "What year is it?" I could see from his change of expression that this was the question he was hoping I wouldn't ask. "Well, Bill has done a lot of work on the old engine. It's only a few years old, really. I hope he didn't think so little of me as to believe I would give up that easily." "When did he buy it?" "He bought it in 1984, I think." "Did he buy it new?" No. I think it was new in the early 60s or late 50s at the earliest," he admitted sheepishly. "Dad, I don't really know anything about cars. I wouldn't be able to fix it if anything went wrong, and I couldn't afford a mechanic." "Really, Bella, the thing runs great. They don't build them like that anymore." The thing, I thought to myself. It had possibilities as a nickname at the very least. "How cheap?" is cheap. After all, that was the part I couldn't compromise on. Well, honey, I kind of already bought it for you. As a homecoming gift. Charlie peeked sideways at me with a hopeful expression. Oh, free. Didn't need to do that, Dad. I was going to buy myself a car. I don't mind. I want you to be happy here. He was looking ahead at the word when he said this. Charlie wasn't comfortable with expressing his emotions out loud. I inherited that from him, so I was looking straight ahead as I responded. That's really nice, Dad. Thanks. I really appreciate it. No need to add that my being happy in Forks is an impossibility. He didn't need to suffer along with me, and I never looked a free truck in the mouth. Origin. Well, no, you're welcome, he mumbled, embarrassed by my thanks. We exchanged a few more comments on the weather, which was wet, and that was pretty much it for conversation. We stared out the windows in silence. It was beautiful, of course. I couldn't deny that. Everything was green. The trees, the trunks covered with moss, their branches hanging with a canopy of it, the ground covered with ferns. Excuse me. Even the air filtered down greenly through the leaves. It was too green, an alien planet. Eventually, we made it to Charlie's. He still lived in the small two-bedroom house that he bought with my mother in the early days of their marriage. Those were the only kind of days their marriage had, the early ones. There, parked on the street in front of the house that never changed, was my new to me, truck. It was a faded red color with big rounded fenders and a bulbous cab. To my intense surprise, I loved it. I didn't know if it would run, but I could see myself in it. It was one of those solid iron affairs that never gets damaged, the kind you see at the scene of an accident, paint on scratch surrounded by the pieces of the foreign car I destroyed. Wow, Dad, I love it, thanks! Now my heredity tomorrow would be just that much less dreadful. I wouldn't be faced with the choice of either walking 2 miles in the rain to school or accepting a ride in the Chief's cruiser. Well, I'm glad you like it, Charlie said gruffly, embarrassed again. It took only one trip to get all my stuff upstairs. I got the west bedroom that faced out over the front yard. The room was familiar. It had belonged to me since I was born. The wooden floor, the light blue walls, the peaked ceiling, the yellow lace curtains around the window. These were all a part of my childhood. The only changes Charlie had ever made were switching the crib for a bed and adding a desk as I grew. The desk now held a second-hand computer with a phone line for the modem stapled along the floor to the nearest phone jack. This was a stipulation from my mother so that we could stay in touch easily. The rocking chair from my baby days was still in the corner. There was only one small bathroom at the top of the stairs, which I would have to share with Charlie. I was trying not to go too much on that part. One of the best things about Charlie is he doesn't hover. He left me alone until unpacking got settled, a feat that would have been altogether impossible for my mother. He was nice to be alone up to half the smile and look pleased, and it's a relief to stare dejectedly out the window like the shooting moon and ledge of a huge wave escape. I wasn't even ready to go on a real climb job. I would have to save that for bedtime, and I would have to think about becoming a man. Forks High School had a frightened total of only 357, not 358 students, so more than 700 people in the junior class and one back home. All the kids here had grown up together. Their parents had been college together. I would be the newbie from the big city, a curiosity, a freak. Even if I looked like a girlfriend, I sure I could work with some advantage. But physically, I never been anywhere. I should be tan, sporty, blonde, a volleyball player, a cheerleader, perhaps all the things that go with living in the valley of the sun. Instead, I was Ivy Stone, without even the excuse of blue as a hair despite the constant sunshine. I had always been sounded with sucks, obviously I'm an athlete. I didn't have the necessary hand-eye coordination to play sports without knowing myself and having broken myself in anyone else to be close. When I finished playing my clothes in the old pine dresser, it took me a bag of breath and necessities and went to the common in the bathroom to clean up after the period of travel. I looked at my face in the mirror and brushed my tangled damp hair. Maybe it was the light, but already I looked sour, unhealthy. My skin could be very pretty. It was very clear, almost translucent looking, but it all depended on color. Facing my college reflection in the mirror, I was forced to admit that I was lying to myself. It wasn't just physically that I wouldn't have to fit in. And if I couldn't find a niche in a school with 3,000 people, what were the chances here? What were my chances here, sorry? I didn't relate well to people my age. Maybe the truth was that I didn't relate well to people, period. Even my mom, who I was closer to than anyone else on the planet, was not in harmony with me, never on exactly the same page. Sometimes I wondered if I was seeing the same things through my eyes that the rest of the world was seeing through hers. I think I was a bitch. But the cause didn't matter. All that mattered was the effect, and from there I would be just to begin. I didn't sleep well that night, even after I was done crying. The constant whooshing of the rain and wind across the roof and fade into the background. I pulled the faded old quilt over my head and laid it out of the pillow too. I couldn't fall asleep until after midnight, and the wind finally settled into a fiery river. Thick fog was all I could see out my window in the morning, and I could feel the clock so far we had taken up on me. You could never see the sky. It was like a cage. Breakfast with Charlie was a quiet night. He wished me good luck at school. I thanked him knowing his hope was wasted. They left him to avoid me. Charlie left our stop at the police station with his wife and family. After he left outside the old squad table in front of the room in one of the three American chairs and examined the small kitchen with darkly lit glass bright little cabinets and one in the floor. Nothing has changed. My mother had painted 18 years ago. My mother painted the cabinets 18 years ago and the temporary contemporary eyes. Over the small fireplace in the adjoining handkerchief-sized family was rows of pictures. First, the wedding picture of Charlie and my mom in Las Vegas, and then the three of us in the hospital after I was born to think I helped, and was followed by the processional musical pictures of the Lazarus. Those were embarrassing to look at. I would have to see what I could do to get Charlie to pick them somewhere else, at least while I was living here. It was impossible being in the assessment to realize that Charlie had never gotten over my mom. It made me uncomfortable. I didn't want to be too early to school, but I couldn't stay in the house anymore. I'd gone my job and tried to fill the biohazard suit and head out into the rain. It was just drilling, so not enough to shove me through immediately as I reached for the house, but it was always hidden under the eaves by the door locked up. The sloshing in the waterproof gates was unnerving. I missed the normal crunch of gravel as I walked. I couldn't pause and admire the truck all at once. I was in a hurry to get out of the misty wet, swirled around my head and came to my hand in my head. Inside the truck, it was nice and dry. Either Billy or Charlie had obviously cleaned it up, but the tan upholstered seats still smelled faintly of gas, tobacco, gasoline, and peppermint. The engine started quickly to my relief, loudly, once off the night in the top volume. Well, I thought this old was going to have a flow. The engine radio worked as close to what I hadn't expected. Finding school was difficult, though I'd never been there before. School isn't most of the things off the highway. It was not obvious that it was a school only the same as the closure to the Forest High School in East Scott. It looked like a collection of matching houses built with rain-colored bricks. There were so many trees and shrubs I couldn't see outside at first. What was the building institutional one of these the place? Where were the chain fences, the metal detectors? I parked in front of the first building with a small sign over the door with the front office. No one else was parked there, so I was sure it was off limits, but I decided I would get directions inside circling around in the rain like an idiot. I stepped unwillingly out of the tilted truck cab and walked down a little stone path lined with dark hedges. I took a deep breath before opening the door. Inside it was brightly lit and warmer than the house. The office was small, a little waiting area of padded folding chairs, orange flush commercial carpet, notices and awards cluttering the walls of big clocks ticking loudly. Plants grew everywhere in class of pots, as if there wasn't enough greenery outside. The room was cut in half by a long counter cluttered with wire baskets full of papers and brightly colored flags tipped to its front. There were 3 desks on the counter, one of which was manned by a rose-red-haired woman with glasses. She was wearing a purple t-shirt which immediately made me feel her best. The red-haired woman looked up. "Can I help you?" And Isabel was smiling for me and saw the immediate awareness light her eyes. I was expecting the topic of gossip about daughter of the chief's flighty ex-wife from home at last. "Of course," she said. She got through a precariously stacked pile of documents on the desk of one of the ones she was looking for. I had discovered right here on the map of the school. She brought all the seats to the time of the showing. She went through my class time, holding the bus route from the map, and gave me a slip tag each teacher sandwich I was to bring back at the end of the day. She smiled at me and helped like Charlie by what like on her face. I smiled back as convincingly as I could. When I went back out to my truck, other students were starting to arrive. I drove around the school following the lunch truck. I was glad to see that most of the cars were older that year and had been flashier. Hamlet lived in one of the few low-income neighborhoods that included in the Paris Valley District. It was a common thing to see a new Mercedes or Porsche in the student lot. The noise Carter was showing involvement stood out. Still, I could be as soon as I was in the spots that the thunderstorm and the attention now. I looked at the map in the truck, trying to memorize it now. Probably I wouldn't have to walk around with it stuck in front of my nose all day. I shoved everything in my bag, and strapped over my shoulder and stuck in a huge bag. No one was going to bite me. I finally exhaled and stepped out of the truck. I kept my first book back to my head as I walked to the sidewalk, proud of the teenagers. My plain black jacket didn't stand out when I was relieved. Once I got around the cafeteria, Bowling Green was in the spot. A large black 3 was pinned on the white square in the east corner. I felt my breathing gradually creep into hyperventilation as I approached the door. I could only my breath as if all 2 minutes I was getting close to the door. The classroom stand. The people in front of me stopped just inside the door to hang up their coats in the long yellow poles. I copied them. There were 2 girls, one a porcelain-colored blonde, the other also pale with light brown hair. Raisin's skin might be a stand-up here. I took the subtlety of the teacher, a tall, balding man whose desk had included the defined himself. Mason. He glanced at me when he saw me not to my response, and of course I pushed him away. But at least he sent me to an empty desk at the back without introducing me to the class. It was hard for me new classmates to stare at me in the back, but somehow I managed to put my eyes down on the reading list the teacher had given me. It was fairly basic: Bronte, Shakespeare, Chaucer, Faulkner. I already read everything. That was comforting. I wondered if my mom had seen my folder of old essays or she would think I was cheating. I went through different arguments with her in my head as the teacher droned on. And the bell rang, and there was a buzzing sound. A young boy with skin problems and hair black and yellow spoke being pressed. Talk to me. Isabel's fun, aren't she? She looks like the overly helpful just portrait. Well, I told her. Everyone from the recently was too bold for me. What is this class? He asked. I had to check him out. I'm government with Jefferson in Building 6. There was no other work without me being curious eyes. I'm going to take over the flag, too, there. Yeah. I'm married, Daddy. A small tent for first class. Yellow jackets made out and spinning into picked up. I could have sworn several people behind us were walking close enough to eavesdrop. I hope it wasn't getting paranoid. Some of us a lot different from me, son, he asked. Barry, what do you mean to the desert? 3 or 4 times a year? I don't stop you like me. Sonny, I told him, you got my fairy tale, no idea is caught up on me. Simon face apprehensively on his side. You look like Cloud's sense of humor did it mix. Opinions of this end forget how to use sarcasm. We walked back on the cafeteria to the south wing beverage, and Eric walked me right to the door that it was carrying out. Well, good luck, he said as I touched my hand, and we have some other classes together. He sounded hopeful. I smiled at him vaguely and went inside. The rest of the morning passed in about the same fashion. The trigonometry teacher, Mr. Barney Boy, would have hated Emily just because of the subject he taught. I was the only one who made me stand in front of the class and introduce myself. I stammered, blushed, and tripped over my own boots on the way in the seat. After 2 classes started, recognized several of the faces in each class. There was always someone braver than the others who would introduce themselves and ask me questions about how I was like people. So I tried to be diplomatic, but mostly I just let it out. At least nobody did that. One girl sat next to me in the trigonometry and Spanish, and she walked with me to the cafeteria for lunch. She was tiny, several inches shorter than my 5 feet 4 inches. Her wildly colored dark hair made up of a lot of the difference between my heads. I couldn't remember her name, so I smiled and nodded as she chatted about teaching classes. I didn't thought. She sat at the end of a full table with her friends and she introduced me. I took all their names as soon as she spoke them. They seemed impressed by her bravery in speaking to me. The boy from English Eric waved at me from across the room. It was their single lunchroom, friendly conversation with 7 curious strangers that I first saw them. They were sitting in the corner of the cafeteria as far away from where I had sat as possible in the long room. There were 5 of them. They weren't talking and they weren't eating, though they each had a tray of untouched food in front of them. They weren't docking me like most of the other students, so it was safe to stare at them without fear of meeting an excessive interested pair of eyes. But it was the nervousness that caught and held my attention. I didn't look anything alike. Of the 3 boys, one was big, muscular, with serious, lefted with dark curly hair. Nervous, hollow-leaning, but so muscular and honeycomb. Last was under his bulky, with heavy blonde curly hair. He was more brushed than the others who looked like they could be in college and even teachers were out of good students. The girls were opposites. Tall one was statuesque. She had a beautiful figure that can be seen on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Kind of made every girl around her take a head and self-esteem as well being in the same room. Her hair was golden, gently waving to the middle of her back. The short girl was pixie-like, thin and extremely small features. Her hair was a deep black hot sun going in every direction. And yet they were all exactly alike. Every one of them was chocolate pale, the palest of all the students living in this sunless town. They had been media by now. They all had very dark eyes between the range of hair bands. They also had dark shadows under their eyes, purplish blues like shadows, as if they were all suffering from the sleepless night or almost uncovering from their broken nose. Though their noses, all their features were straight, sharp, and black. That was easy why I couldn't look away. Except because their faces so different, so similar, while all devastatingly inhuman and beautiful. They were faces you never expected to see, perhaps in the airbrush pages of a fashion magazine or painted by an old master at the face of an angel. It was hard to decide who was the most beautiful. Maybe the perfect blonde girl or the blonde-haired boy. They were all looking away from each other, away from the other students, away from anything in particular as far as I could tell. As I watched, the small girl rose to the tray, and up inside down, bit an apple and waved a little quick, gracefully left the blonde and ran away. I watched the maze of the light dance up as the train glided to the back door. Faster than I thought possible. My eyes darted back to the others who sat in changing. I asked to welcome Miss Mary's class with the name and forgotten. As she looked to see who I meant, though already knowing probably from my tone, suddenly he looked at the thinner one, the boyish one, the youngest perhaps. He looked at me for just a fraction of a second, and then his dark eyes flickered to mine. He looked at me quickly, more quickly than I could, though in a flush of embarrassment I dropped my eyes at once. In that brief flash of a glance, his face held nothing of interest. It was as if she called his name and looked at an involuntary response already having decided not to answer. My neighbor giggled in embarrassment, looking at the table I guided. It's evident on the phone and Rosalie and Dr. Hill. The one who left was Alice Cullen. They all worked together with Dr. Cullen as well, she said, under her breath. I glanced how was a beautiful boy who was looking at his tray now, taking a big over pieces with one pale fingers. His mouth was moving very quickly. Perfect lips curling open. The other three still looked away in their face, speaking quietly to them. What names I thought? What kind of names Brenda said? I finally remembered that my neighbor was named Jessica, a perfectly common name. There were two girls named Jessica in my history class when I got home. My name's on the shoulder with conspicuous in the statement. Jessica agreed with me with Google. We're all together. And my neighbor was very Jessica and I was together. Her voice was shocked and condemnation at the same time, I thought critically. But if I was being honest, I had to admit that even a big trespasser. Twins? You don't like them. Oh, they're not. Dr. Cullen's real name is twins are early thirds. They're all adopted. The girls are brother and sister? Twins. They belong to my foster children. They look a little old for foster children. They are now Jasper and Rosalie are bare 18, but they've been with Mrs. Cullen since they were like 2 or something like that. I feel like I'm nice with them to tell all those kids like that. Anyway. As I said, Jessica admitted the left to me, and got the impression that she didn't like the doctor's wife on me for some reason. But the glances she was throwing at their adopted children was presumed the reason of jealousy. I think it was Cullen coming down to the church where I was like that listening to things. Throughout all this conversation, my eyes flickered again and again to the table where a strange family sat. They continued to look at the walls and nodded. Have you always wanted folks? And I sure would have noticed them on one of my sentences. No, she said in a voice that would like to be obvious, even to a new robber like me. I just moved down 2 years ago from somewhere in Alaska. I felt a surge of pity and relief. Pity because as beautiful as they were outsiders clearly not accepted. Relief that I wasn't the only newcomer here and certainly the most interesting guy in standard. As I examined them, the youngest one of the poems looked up and met my gaze, this time with evident curiosity in his expression. As they so far away, it seemed to me that his glance held some kind of unmet expectation. Who was the boy with the reddish brown hair? I peeked at him from the corner of my eye and he was still staring at me. But I had not gotten like the other students had today, really slightly frustrated expression. Oh, down again. That's Ed, but he's gorgeous, of course, but don't look at him. Apparently none of the girls here could have been enough for him. He sniffed, a clear kiss of sour grapes. Wonder when he turned around. I bit my lip to hide my smile. Then I glanced at him again. His face was turning but I thought his stupid look as if he was smiling too. After a few minutes of arguing with the table there, we were all noticeably girls waiting at the ground. It was unsettling to watch. Edward didn't look at me again. I sat at the table with Jessica and her friends longer than I would have if I had been sitting alone. I was only smart to make for class on my first day. One of my new friends, who considerately reminded me that her name was Angela, had biology 2 with me the next hour. We all left class together in silence. She was shy too. When we entered the classroom, Angela went to sit at a black-top lab table exactly like the ones I was used to. She already had a neighbor. In fact, all of the tables were filled with one. Next to the center aisle, I recognized Edward Cullen by his unusual hair, sitting next to that single open seat. As I walked down the aisle to introduce myself to the teacher and got my steps under, I was watching him surreptitiously. Just as I passed, he suddenly went rigid in his seat. He stared at me genuine eyes with the strangest expression on his face. It was hostile, furious. I looked away, quickly, shocked. Going ready. He stumbled over a book in the Walkman and kept himself on the table. The girl swung my papers. Mr. Spanish suddenly slipped and handed me a book with no nonsense about introductions. I could tell we were going to get along. Of course, the only trick was to send me to the one up at something in the room. I kept my eyes on as I went to sit by him, bewildered by the idea I was still me. I didn't look up as I sat my work on the table to the seat, but I saw his pocket from the corner. He was leaning away from me, sitting on the extreme edge of his chair. Whenever in his face, I just want something bad. Something inconspicuously sniffed my hair. It smelled like strawberries and scent of my favorite shampoo. It seemed to innocent enough odor. I let my hair fall right over my shoulder and even a dark curtain between us and tried to pay attention to the teacher. Unfortunately, the lecture was on cellular anatomy, something I'd already studied. I took notes carefully and realized I was sitting down. I couldn't stop myself from taking occasionally to the screen my hair with the student of next to me, doing all crossing over the last still position and moving the chair, sitting as far from me as possible. I could see his hand on his left leg was clenched into a fist. And his tendons standing out under his pale skin. This too he never relaxed, yet the long sleeves were wide, so pushed up to his elbows, and his forearm was surprisingly muscular. He wasn't, and his forearm was surprisingly hard and muscular beneath his light skin. He wasn't nearly as slight as he looked next to his burly brother. The class seemed to drag on longer than the others. Was it because the day was finally coming to a close, or because it was waiting for his tight fist to loosen? It never did. He continued to sit so still it looked like he wasn't breathing. What was wrong with him? Was this his normal behavior? I questioned my judgment of Jessica's bitterness at lunch today. Maybe she wasn't as resentful as I thought. It couldn't have anything to do with me. He didn't know me from Eve, I'm sorry. I peeked at him one more time and regretted it. He was glaring down at me again, his black eyes full of revulsion. As I flinched away from him, shrinking against my chair, the phrase of looks could kill suddenly ran through my mind. At that moment, the bell rang loudly, making me jump, and Edward Cullen was out of his seat. Fluidly, he rose. He was much taller than I thought. His back to me, and he was out the door before anyone else was out of their seat. I sat frozen on my seat, staring blankly after him. He was so mean. It wasn't fair. I began gathering up my things slowly, trying to block the anger that filled me for fear my eyes would tear up. For some reason, my temper was hardwired to my tear ducts. I usually cried when I was angry, a humiliating tendency. Aren't you Isabella Swan? A male voice asked. I looked up to see a cute baby-faced boy, his pale blonde hair carefully gelled into orderly spikes, smiling at me in a friendly way. He obviously didn't think I smelled bad. Bella cried to him with a smile. I'm Meg. Hi, Meg. You need any help finding your next class? I'm headed to the gym, actually. I think I can find it. That's my next class, too. He seemed thrilled, though it wasn't that big of a coincidence in a school this small. We walked to class together. He was a chatterer. He supplied most of the conversation, which made it easier for me. He lived in California until he was 10, so he knew how I felt about the sun. It turned out he was in my English class also. He was the nicest person I had met today. But as we were entering the gym, he asked, So, did you stab Edward Cullen with a pencil or what? I've never seen him act like that. I cringed. So I wasn't the only one who had noticed, and apparently that wasn't Edward Cullen's usual behavior. I decided to play dumb. Was that the boy I sat next to in biology? I asked artlessly. Yes, he said. He looked like he was in pain or something. I don't know, I responded. I never spoke to him. He's a weird guy. Mike lingered by me instead of heading to the dressing room. If I were lucky to sit by you, I would have talked to you. I smiled at him before walking through the girls' locker room door. He was friendly and clearly admiring, but it wasn't enough to ease my irritation. The gym teacher, Coach Clapp, found me a uniform, but didn't make me dress down for today's class. At home, only 2 years of physical education were required. Here, it was mandatory all 4. Forks was literally my personal hell on earth. I watched 4 volleyball games running simultaneously. Remembering how many injuries I had sustained and inflicted during playing volleyball, I felt faintly nauseated. The final bell rang at last. I walked slowly to the office to return my paperwork. The rain had drifted away, but the wind was strong and colder. I wrapped my arms around myself. When I walked into the warm office, I almost turned around and walked back out. Edward Cullen stood at the desk in front of me. I recognized again that towels with bronze hair. He didn't appear to notice the sound of my entrance. He stood pressed against the back wall, waiting for the receptionist to be free. He was arguing with her in a low, attractive voice. I quickly picked up the gist of the argument. He was trying to trade from 6-hour biology 2 to another time. Any other time, though. I just couldn't believe that this was about me. It had to be something else, something that happened before I entered the biology room. The look in his face must have been about another aggravation entirely. It was impossible that the stranger could take such a sudden, intense dislike to me. The door opened again, and the cold wind suddenly gusted through the room, rustling the papers on the desk, twirling my hair around my face. The girl came in merely stepped to the desk, placed a note in the wire basket, and walked out again. But Edward Cullen's back stiffened, and he turned slowly to glare at me. His face was certainly handsome, with piercing hate-filled eyes. For an instant, I felt a thrill of genuine fear, raising the hair on my arms. The look only lasted a second, but it showed me more than the freezing wind. He turned back to the receptionist. "Never mind, then," he said hastily in a voice like velvet. "I can see that it's impossible. Thank you so much for your help." And he turned on his heel without another look at me and disappeared out the door. I went meekly to the desk, my face white for once instead of red, and handed her the signed slip. "How did your first day go, dear?" The receptionist asked maternally. "Fine." I let my voice weak. She didn't look convinced. When I got to the truck, it was almost the last car on the lot. It seemed like a haven already, the closest thing to all I had in this damp green hole. I sat inside for a while, just staring out the windshield blankly, but soon it was cold enough to need the heater. So I turned the key, and the engine roared to life. I headed back to Charlie's house, fighting tears the whole way there.